So ladies and gentlemen, you know, time seems to get a lot slower for some of us. We still have another 5 minutes before we of the color party. So please rise if you can for the entrance of the color party, which will be followed by the national anthem. Well, good morning and welcome everyone to the Manitoba Métis Federation's Indigenous Veterans Day ceremony. I want to thank Elder Oliver Boulette and Elder Jerry McIver for their stunning rendition of O Canada. I had to remind myself to replace God Save the Queen to God Save the King, so something new for us older timers. We gather here today at the beautiful Lac du Bonnet Royal Canadian Legion Branch 164 to honor our Red River Métis veterans. I'd like to thank you, Vice President Denise Thomas, Minister Nault, and Minister Gauthier for having us in the Southeast region today. As mentioned earlier, my name is Andrew Carrier, and I am a proud Red River Métis veteran who served with the Royal Canadian Navy from 1976 to 1983. I'm also the Vice President to the Winnipeg region and the Minister responsible for the Red River Métis Community Resource Department, French and Michif language protection, as well as the residential and day schools. Before we begin, I would like to extend a sincere thank you to the board and staff of the Lac du Bonnet Legion for allowing us to have our ceremony here today, and for their commitment to serving our veterans. The Legions have been a vital place for the Connections for Veterans for over 100 years, and we have encouraged everyone to get involved in their local Legion and learn about the services that they offer to veterans and their families. On a personal note, I want to say that my father and my grandfather and my brother and I, as well as cousins, have always been proud members of the Legion and much appreciated for all of the services. The Red River Métis Veterans Department would also like to thank Veterans Affairs Canada for providing funding for their Commemorative Partnership Programs to host this year's ceremony. I'd like to recognize our special guest here with us today. So please help me welcome Minister of Energy and Infrastructure, as well as and veteran of the Canadian Armed Forces, Mr. Jack Park. Please rise. Minister for 60 Scoop and Residential Schools Engagement and Consultation, as well as the Associate Minister for Land Claims and Vice President of the Southeast Region. Please help me welcome Minister Denise Thomas. We also have the Minister for the Red River Métis Veterans, as well as a veteran of the Canadian Armed Forces, Mr. Sean Nault. We also have the Minister for Environment and Climate Change and Associate Minister for French and Michif Language Protection, Minister Marielle Gauthier. A very short one here. We have one for Minister of Agriculture, very important to our rural areas and northern areas for our citizens, Minister David Bowden. Last but not least, Minister for Provincial Education, Minister Joanne Remillard. Thank you very much for the Cabinet for being here. I'd like to also recognize from the Canadian Armed Forces 17 Wing, Lieutenant Colonel Joshua Van Time, as well as Master Warrant Officer Mavis Plesh. Please stand. We have the Assistant Commissioner, Scott McChurchy. I got to put my glasses back on. The Commanding Officer for the RCMPD Division. Please stand. Thank you very much. A good friend of our Métis community, Member of Parliament for Selkirk of Interlake Region and Eastman, Mr. James Bazan. From the rural municipality of Lac du Bonnet, the Reeve Lauren Schinkel. Representing both the town of Lac du Bonnet as well as the MMF Lac du Bonnet local, His Worship Mayor Ken Lodge, as I said, who's also the chair of the local. Ken? Representing today the Royal Canadian Legion, Vice President Gail Conrad Davey of the Royal Canadian Legion, Manitoba and the Northwest Region of Ontario, Provincial Command, and as well as Trevor Jevin, please, she not here? Well, thank you very much for Gail for standing up. On behalf of the Hong Kong Veterans Commemorative Association, Pamela Henrich. Thank you, Pamela. I would also like to acknowledge our color party led by, I had a chance to speak with President of Lac du Bonnet Legion, Robert Hampshire, as well as veteran Gord Wells, veterans Dwayne Wickstrom, veteran Stephen Choquette, Stan Taylor. Are you all standing or here? Thank you. On a side note, I was trying to get President Robert Hampshire to come and speak, but he said he'll decline for today, so thank you. And finally, to all the veterans and families here with us today, really a deep, heartfelt thank you for being here. This year's Indigenous Veterans Day is extra special as the Manitoba government recently passed Bill 210, the Indigenous Veterans Day Act, marking 2025 as the first time that November 8th will be officially recognized as Indigenous Veterans Day provincially. Yeah. Since 1994, Manitoba has honored Indigenous veterans, but it is nice to see it formally introduced and passed within our provincial legislature. Indigenous Veterans Day enables us to uplift our Métis veterans and their families, honoring everything they have contributed and sacrificed for our country and our freedoms. It allows us to show our appreciation through our cultural practices, which is what we will do today. Throughout this ceremony, you will notice aspects that are present in Remembrance Day ceremonies across the country, but grounded in Red River Métis culture. That is why we have the fiddle. Thank you, Oliver. So prominent in our ceremony, and why we have entertainment that follows. The day allows us to acknowledge achievements as well as unfair treatment that our veterans often faced upon return or during their service, and show them their commitment that their communities will always make space for them. Indigenous Veterans Day does not intend to detract from the attention given to Remembrance Day on November 11th. Instead, it allows us to acknowledge the experiences, achievements, sacrifices, and hardships that are unique to Indigenous veterans. Understanding that our veterans and their families face many hardships, and the soberness of the sacrifice our people have always found healing through community, song, dance, and food. That is why the reception that follows the ceremony is so critical. We heal amongst our kins as our music flows through our ears, and our ancestors join us in spirit. So we invite you to stay for the reception, where we will honor the legacy of one of the World War II Métis veterans, Sergeant Lawrence La Liberté, by playing a short documentary that was created in partnership between Glenn La Liberté, Lawrence's son, and the Red River Métis Veterans Department, as well as the MMF Communications Department, and then enjoy some refreshments while you listen to the beautiful music of Glenn Hugill and Brian Mayo, while our Canoe Young Youth dancers jig. So at this time, I'd like to invite Elder Oliver Boulette to perform the last post. We ask that you rise and remain standing, if you're able, for the last post, followed by 2 minutes of silence to honor our veterans, which will be followed by the lament played by Corporal Alexina Nolte, and then our ruse by Oliver Boulette after that. Please be seated. I will now invite Veteran Minister Sean Knoll, as well as Minister Maria Gauthier, to read the Act of Remembrance, and the Red River Métis Youth Skylar Thomas to join them for the commitment to remember. Just so that you know, which will also be read by Minister Maria Gauthier in French. Please join us. This way, oh, one big step, all right. Let me just move all the way. Thank you.
They were young as we are young. They served, giving freely of themselves. To them we pledge, amid the winds of time, to carry their torch and never forget. We will remember them. We will remember them.
Ils étaient jeunes, jeunes comme nous. Ils ont servi, donnant généreusement d'eux-mêmes. Nous leur promettons, en dépit du temps qui passe, de porter le flambeau et de ne jamais oublier nous. Nous souviendrons d'eux. Nous souviendrons d'eux.
They shall not grow old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
Ils ne vieilliront pas comme nous qui leur avons subversu. Ils ne connaîtront jamais l'outrage ni le poids des années. Quand viendra l'heure de crépuscule et celle de l'aurore, nous nous souviendrons d'eux. Nous nous souviendrons d'eux.
Take a big step that way. All right. Thank you very much for those readings. I would like to now invite Elder Marcella Vecina to the stage to lead us in prayer.
My name is Marcella Vesna. I'm honored today to be giving the prayers as requested for our people. We come together to honor our Indigenous veterans who have served in the wars involving Canada. We honor and thank them all. Father, Creator, we ask for blessings for our young men and women who paid the ultimate price with their lives. We ask that they have eternal rest. Thank you, Creator, for our military veterans, especially the Métis veterans and all Indigenous peoples, those who have kept the watch on our behalf, kept our shores clear, and protected us from harm. Give to all who have served and all who are actually serving the identity and purpose that comes only from you. We ask for blessings on our Métis people, our Métis veterans and Indigenous, who served and were wounded in body, mind, and spirit. Grant them your comfort and peace, and for the healing blessing of invisible wounds of war. We give thanks to all. Amen. Merci. Miigwech.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much for that lovely prayer. I want to welcome Skylar Thomas and Minister Mario Gauthier back to the stage to recite Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae's poem that inspired the poppy as the national symbol of Canadian remembrance in Flanders Field.
In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead short days ago. We lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep though poppies grow in Flanders fields.
Au champ d'honneur, les coquelicots sont parsemés de l'eau en l'eau. Auprès les croix et dans l'espace, les alouettes devenues l'os. Mêlant leur chant au sifflement des abusés, nous sommes morts. Nous qui soignons la vieille encore, à nos parents, à nos amis, c'est nous qui répondons ici au chant d'honneur. À vous, jeunes désabusés, à vous de porter l'oriflamme et de garder au fond de l'âme le goût de vivre et de liberté. Acceptez le défi, sinon les coquelicots se faneront au champ d'honneur.
Thank you very much. Un grand merci. Just making sure we're all on schedule here. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to make sure we're right on schedule, and I'm glad to say that we are. Okay, just give me a second here. Following the poem, Veterans Minister Sean Nolt will come to the stage and provide remarks on behalf of the Manitoba Métis Federation President David Chartrand, and as the minister responsible for the River Métis Veterans Department. Please help me welcome Sean back.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to thank Elders Marcella Vesna and Oliver Billette for their prayers and the music so far. It is my pleasure to welcome all of you to our 4th annual Indigenous Veterans Day ceremony in the Southeast region, which is my home region. I am honored to bring remarks on behalf of the Red River Métis Veterans Department, for which I am the minister, as well as on behalf of our president, David Chartrand. President Chartrand sends his sincere regrets, as honoring our veterans is very extremely important to him, and he wishes he could have been here today. Know that he will spend time in prayer reflecting on the contributions of our veterans and all veterans alike. 2025 marks some significant milestones for our veterans. On May 5th, 1945, Germany surrendered, and 3 days later, on May 8th, it was officially recognized that the war in Europe was over. The fear of the Nazis would no longer hold its grip on the world. Yet the war was still not over. The war in the Pacific Theater was still ongoing, and Canadians continued to work hard alongside their allies, sacrificing their lives. Just over 3 months later, on August 15th, 1945, celebrations around the world would erupt as victory over Japan was declared, marking the end of the deadliest war in human history. 80 years later, we can walk free in our beautiful country due to the sacrifices of the many men and women who volunteered. We sometimes take these freedoms for granted. We also understand that the freedom we know today has not always benefited all our Canadian citizens. A lack of educational experience, to a degree, decrease in career opportunities, and those living in rural parts of the country did not have the chance to learn about the veteran services being offered. Furthermore, they were disconnected from their community and had to readjust to a lifestyle off the battlefield. The circumstances following the war led to further ostracizations as veterans dealt with their experiences and post-traumatic stress. I do believe back in those days they called it shell shock, not post-traumatic stress. The circumstances following the war led to further ostracization as veterans dealt with their experiences and post-traumatic stress. In the 20th century, through strong advocacy of our own President Chartrand and other Indigenous leaders, the Government of Canada apologized for the treatment of Indigenous veterans. First Nations veterans received the apology in 2002, and in 2019, at long last, after 20 years of advocacy of our Red River Métis government, Métis veterans finally received their own apology. Last month, the Canadian Armed Forces apologized to all current and former CAF members, or CAF as they like to call it now, and their families for any racial discrimination that they may have faced throughout their service. These apologies are vital for the process and truth and reconciliation. As Canadians, we need to continue having conversations and learning about the truth of our country. When we come together to learn, we also come together to honor and celebrate those who have volunteered and those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. With this sentiment, I was extremely proud to see that last month the province of Manitoba passed Bill 210, the Indigenous Veterans Day Act, which officially is recognized November 8th as the Indigenous Veterans Day. As a veteran, I understand the significance of the decisions one makes when choosing to serve their country. It is not an easy decision to make, but is such an important one. We write that blank check for the government to do with us as they please. As such, I believe it to be crucial and important that we take time in honoring and recognizing past service members of our country, as well as their families, and our current serving as well. In August, I had the pleasure of attending the 80th anniversary of the victory over Japan in Ottawa. The Hong Kong Veterans Commemorative Association, who are in attendance today, has proven to be an exemplary model of how we come together to honor, celebrate, remember, and educate about the sacrifices of those who served. The families of those who served in Hong Kong continue to form a community, creating opportunities for the public to know about the efforts in the Pacific. One thing I noticed when I was there was how their families of these Hong Kong veterans, when they come together, they're like one big happy family. That was very heart-touching to me, seeing these people from across Canada who only see each other maybe once a year. And it's like veterans when they get together, 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 veterans when they get together.
tradition, we'd like to honor you with this gift, and thank you very much for coming to represent the Manitoba Métis Federation. President, thank you. I now invite His Worship Mayor Ken Lodge to the podium to bring remarks on behalf of the town of Lac-du-Bonnet. Ken?
It's not normally like me to come here with a prepared statement, but you're going to get one today. My name's Ken Lodge. I'm the mayor of the town of Lac-du-Bonnet. I'm the chairperson of the Red River Métis, and I represent the Manitoba Métis Federation. It's truly an honor. I'd like to thank you, Marcella, for the prayer. It helps to keep us grounded. Very important. Thank you, Oliver, for the music. Greatly appreciated. I'd also like to thank the Manitoba Métis Federation for the opportunity to be here to say a few words honoring our Indigenous veterans on behalf of our community. And that's our community as a whole, not just Lac-du-Bonnet. It's our Métis community, our Indigenous community. In living memory, men and women of Indigenous ancestry have heard the call to serve, to fight against inhumanity and evil, and to ensure a place for us all. I struggled coming up here just a few minutes ago. Every time I hear the last post, it brings me to tears. The satisfaction I got in hearing the voice of a child after that was extremely important to me, because that grounds me in understanding that this is the reason why these people gave their all. Those people answered that call. They served together with non-Indigenous men and women and with people from all over the world. They served, some for reasons unknown to us, personal reasons, but they served to save a shared vision of the future and not allow evil to triumph. All of them made a sacrifice, some the ultimate one of their lives and dreams, so that we have some. Some came home scarred and burdened and continued to pay for the sacrifices made for us, because of what they had witnessed and experienced was a heavy burden for them and for our society. All of that effort, that sacrifice, was ultimately for us and for peace between peoples. There is still work to do. Regardless of how Canada's peoples self-identify, what root, nationality, ethnic group, religion, creed, or history, we are generally united by a sense of right, of humanity. We are here in our forum at this point because of those that answered the call, and I see a number of you here now. Things could have been much different. Those who served have earned a special place in history. November 8th, this day is now enshrined. We honor our Indigenous veterans, those that freely gave of themselves, who are often not separately recognized amongst the masses of heroes, but are and should be more intimately dear to us and our story as Indigenous peoples. On a personal note, I have an uncle who served in the Canadian military for decades. My fear is that he would have potentially and could still be potentially forgotten. He served out of a sense of right and duty for his country. Nonetheless, regulations, restrictions are such that certain things cannot be done until a certain amount of time passes, and he too was one who was not comfortable sharing his Indigenous ancestry as a Métis person. I am ashamed of that. It should not be that way. We must never forget the grandfathers and grandmothers, the fathers, the mothers, the brothers, the sisters and the cousins, the uncles and the aunts that bore the burden when called, and the families that bore the burden forever after. Especially, we must never forget those that never came home, their futures unrealized, again, so we could have one. What we now offer up seems trivial, not enough compared to what they have done, what some of you have done. The best we can do is honor them by telling their stories and sharing with each other the deep respect that they have earned. Their work is done. The future that we are living was given to us by their sacrifice. The work for the future of the next generations is ours to carry and then pass the torch. For the next generations to answer that call, we must all live by example, just like those that came before us. We must not let their sacrifice be in vain. For those that answer that call, and for those who answer the call to duty, thank you for your service. I leave you with one word. Remember, always 2 words. Thank you.
On behalf of the Manitoba Métis Federation, thank you very much, Ken, for those kind words.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Ken. Oh, there's a picture. Oh, okay. I thought there.
Thought it was ready.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
I now invite Reeve Lauren Schenkel to the podium to bring remarks on behalf of the rural municipality of Lac du Bonnet. Please help me welcome Lauren.
Well, good afternoon or good morning, everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here on behalf of Council and all of our residents to bring greetings, certainly to our community here and the Métis event. Certainly, I just want to say at the beginning that we're gathered here on Treaty 1 and Treaty 3 lands, as well as the homeland of the Métis Nation. And we come together as a community to honor the Indigenous and Métis men and women who have served the Canadian Armed Forces, who made the ultimate sacrifice and who continue to serve our great nation. Our veterans are more than soldiers. They are our relatives, our neighbors, our friends and family. They carried courage into battle, strength through adversity, and resilience back into their communities. And although we've heard today there was many untold stories and turmoil when they returned, their service, whether overseas at home or at home, has safeguarded not only our country, but our values, our families, and our ongoing way of life. We've heard some of the stories, but there are many untold stories, the challenges that they faced, the sacrifices that they made, and the wisdom they brought back. Each veteran has left a lasting mark on our Métis and Indigenous communities, inspiring younger generations to honor our heritage, their heritage, our responsibilities, and the courage that runs in their families. Today is not only a day of recognition, it is a day to reflect, and as has been mentioned, to remember, to ensure that their contributions to our great country have never been forgotten, will never be forgotten. Our gratitude extends to those that serve, those who are still serving, and the families who have supported them along the way. So let us stand together as a community, as a region, honoring and celebrating our veterans. Let us share their stories, share their lives, uphold their legacy, and ensure that their courage and commitment and sacrifices continue to be remembered every day. Thank you. Merci. Miigwech.
On behalf of the Manitoba Métis Federation, thank you much, Lauren, for those kind words. And here's a parting gift.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Whoop. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
It is a great pleasure to welcome Member of Parliament, Mr. James Bazan, to come to the podium, bring remarks on behalf of the Selkirk-Interlake Eastman constituency. Please help me welcome Mr. Bazan.
Good morning, everyone. Veterans, those currently serving in the Canadian Armed Forces, elders, Cabinet of the Métis Nation, ladies and gentlemen. It is a very important part of my ongoing commitment as your Member of Parliament to participate in as many events as possible during Veterans Week. And having Indigenous Veterans Day has been a big part of that for the past 20-odd years. It is important that we pay tribute to those Indigenous veterans who volunteered and signed up and served through multiple wars as well as peacetime in service to Canada to make sure that we are safe here at home. We know that that sacrifice, that service, often came with incredible hardships of discrimination by racism and lack of understanding of the cultural differences that make us unique as Canadians. I know that often people want to talk about, how there is so many different operations and exercises that Canadians have been involved in. But one thing that they often forget is that the first expeditionary force that Canada ever deployed as a nation was in 1884. And it was Red River Métis who stepped up to join the British in Egypt as part of the Egyptian expedition as boatmen, as rivermen, to navigate the Nile, to secure the supply chain, to ensure that Egypt could be secured again as a British Commonwealth nation. And 324 Red River Métis signed up and served and made Canada proud and helped Egypt be liberated. And it's one that often is forgotten. Our very first expedition as Canadians in service to country. And then, of course, we had the Boer War and World War I. World War II, we just celebrated Sergeant Tommy Prince's 110th birthday a couple weeks ago over in Petersfield, where he was born. And his service in World War II, as well as in Korea, is one that we always celebrate. Canada's most decorated Indigenous veteran. Often a lot of people don't realize that Sergeant Tommy Prince was part of the Special Joint Forces on operations, often called the Devil's Brigade, a joint Canada-US brigade that did some amazing things. And Sergeant Tommy Prince wasn't just the most decorated Indigenous veteran, he was the most decorated veteran out of the Devil's Brigade of Canadian and US soldiers. And it's something I think we should all be very, very proud of. He then went and signed up and served in Korea with the PPCLI, the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry 2nd Brigade, and again, did himself proud. I had the honor a couple of weeks ago of being in Seoul and laying a wreath at the plaque where the 516 names of Canadians who perished in Korea, but particularly at the Battle of Kapion, where PPCLI was actually given the Presidential Citation, the only Canadian brigade that has been given the US President's Citation for their amazing courage and victory. When other of our allies fled Kapion, PPCLI, with Sergeant Tommy Prince, with a number of Métis veterans, held the line, captured the hill, and helped win that part of the battle. For those who have served, we can never say thank you enough. Wayne Owasco, our member of the Legislative Assembly for Lactabani, wished he could be here today and unfortunately had commitments in Winnipeg. But he asked me to make sure that, that I passed on his thanks and gratitude for the incredible service of our Indigenous veterans. For those that are today in service, thank you for having the watch. Thank you for standing on the wall. Thank you for working with our allies to ensure that Canada is always safe. To the families of our veterans, thank you for sharing your loved ones with us, with Canada. Make us stronger, make us better, make us safer. And to all of you gathered here today, to Lactabani Legion Branch 164, to the Red River Métis Veterans Department, thank you for this act of remembrance. so that we all have the opportunity to have this chance for reflection, for remembrance, and for gratitude, lest we forget.
Thank you very much for all those kind words, and please accept this gift as our token of appreciation. Thank you very much. I now ask Ms. Gail Conrad-Deve to the stage to provide remarks as Vice President of the Royal Canadian Legion, the Manitoba Northwest Ontario Provincial Command. Please help me welcome Gail to the podium.
Veterans, Minister Nault, honored guests, and friends. It is an honor to participate once again in the Red River Métis Veterans Department Indigenous Day service. I'm especially happy to be here in my home branch of the Royal Canadian Legion, Lac de Bonnie 164. And Bob wouldn't welcome you, but I will. Welcome to Branch 164. Bob's a little shy. I bring greetings from our President of Manitoba and Northwestern Ontario Command, Comrade Robert Cutbush. As you know, we serve 2 provinces, and Rob is busy in Thunder Bay at other events. On this day, our command of the Royal Canadian Legion joins Canadians across the country in paying tribute to the outstanding contributions of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people to our military history. From the World Wars and Korea to peacekeeping and today's armed forces, we honor and value their sacrifice and service. Nous honorons et valorisons leur service et leur sacrifice. The Legion is proud to collaborate with the Red River Métis Veterans Department to ensure Indigenous and Métis veterans are remembered and recognized year-round. We also support their efforts to educate Canadians about the legacy of Indigenous service. Indigenous and Métis veterans were not recognized and did not receive the same benefits as their comrades. So it is in the spirit of reconciliation, Manitoba led the way in 1994 as the first province to recognize Indigenous Veterans Day. I am proud that this is now my home province. During the World Wars, voluntary enlistment among Indigenous peoples was extraordinarily high. Their roles included snipers, scouts, and code talkers, as well as vital support through community fundraising. As was mentioned many times, Indigenous Veteran Day is now enshrined in Manitoba through legislation. Again, Manitoba is leading the way in this recognition. Today, over 1,200 First Nations, Inuit, and Métis members serve with the Canadian Armed Forces, representing diverse cultures and more than 55 Indigenous languages. I want you to all know, veterans here today, the Legion is here for all of you. We are proud to say that in Manitoba, Northwestern Ontario, we've rededicated ourselves to serving veterans, and we have a full-time service officer for any of you who are in need of service, help with VAC claims, anything. Our service officer came on board January 1, and so far he has worked with 120 veterans. and helping them with their claims. And we're proud to say that he has helped 8 unhoused veterans secure permanent housing. So please avail yourself of the Legion services. We're here to serve all veterans. On behalf of the Royal Canadian Legion and Manitoba Northwestern Ontario Command, I thank the Red River Métis Department for their ongoing dedication, and I thank all veterans for their service. N'oublions jamais, lest we forget.
So on behalf of the Manitoba Métis Federation, thank you very much, Gail, for your presentation, and please accept this gift on our behalf.
Thank you, Andrew.
It's a little heavy, so you okay?
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
If you could just
Sure,
help me down.
sure.
Don't drop my leg.
Well, we got those knees working. Thank you very much, Gail, on that. I now call upon and welcome Ms. Pamela Henrich to bring remarks on behalf of the Hong Kong Veterans Commemorative Association. Please help me join in welcoming Pamela to the podium.
Good morning. First of all, I'd like to thank the Red River Métis Veterans Department for including the Hong Kong Veterans Commemorative Association in today's service. It's an honor to be able to do this. And I'd also like to thank the Métis Veterans Legacy Department for providing funding to our association over the past couple of years to conduct an extensive research project, a little bit which you'll hear about in my talk, and also to provide funding to help us celebrate, as we did in Ottawa in August, that Sean Nault had mentioned. So those were all very important things to our association. Some of you are probably wondering what Hong Kong veterans have to do with Canadian veterans and/or Indigenous Veterans Day. You're not alone. Many don't know the story. In 1941, Canada, at the request of Britain, sent the Royal Rifles of Quebec and the Winnipeg Grenadiers, along with headquarters, to the then British colony of Hong Kong. Of the almost 2,000 Canadian soldiers sent, 131 of them were Indigenous, and of those, 126 were Red River Métis. The Canadians were sent to help defend Hong Kong against what was thought an unlikely attack by Japan, but less than 3 weeks after the Canadians arrived, Japan attacked Hong Kong the same day it attacked Pearl Harbor. But Japan sent 30,000 battle-hardened soldiers to Hong Kong. The Allies, which the Canadians were part of, had only 14,000, many inexperienced. A ferocious 17-day battle ensued in which 290 Canadians lost their lives, and which ended with Hong Kong surrendering to Japan on Christmas Day, 1941. The fighting was over, but the worst was yet to come. Survivors of that first battle had a second battle. They became prisoners of war of Japan, and they battled to live for almost 4 years, until August 15th, 1945. Their living conditions were inhumane, crowded, filthy, vermin-infested camps that lacked, among other things, basic hygiene facilities. For almost 4 years, the POWs were starved, beaten, and forced to perform hard physical labor in shipyards and coal mines in both Hong Kong and Japan. The men suffered terribly from the starvation and lack of hygiene. Disease ran rampant in the camps. They received little or no medical supplies or treatment. Most of them lost at least half their body weight, and many could barely walk. Still, they were forced to work. And there was the psychological torture, being treated as less than animals, being told that Japan was attacked, being told that if Japan was attacked and all POWs would be executed, being subjected to cruel and unimaginable tortures daily for almost 4 years. As time wore on, the men became weaker and sicker and were dying faster. Another 267 of them died in the prison camps. I have been to the cemeteries in Hong Kong and Japan. Japan surrendered when the atomic bombs were dropped. Many of the men were in camps in Japan when that happened. Of those 131 Indigenous soldiers, 49 of them didn't come home. Those that did survive and come home were forever deeply scarred, some physically, all psychologically. Those scars aren't felt only by the veterans. Their families and friends often suffer as a result too. I know about the Hong Kong veterans because my dad was one of the Métis Hong Kong vets. There are other family members of other Hong Kong vets here today too. And then their third battle, for their pensions and recognition from Canada, a battle that was unique to the Hong Kong veterans. But on top of that, the Indigenous members had the battle also of recognition and compensation from Canada. I tell you this today because we must not forget these stories of war and conflict. The Hong Kong story is just one of many, and sadly, there are many that are far more recent than theirs. We must tell these stories, whether from the far or recent past, in hope that such things can be stopped from happening over and over. We cannot give up hope. And we must honor all those in the armed forces, past and present, who willingly protect us, all those who have given their lives, and all those who survive but bear scars on their bodies, their minds, and their hearts. I think it can best be said in the words of a British Hong Kong vet, Arthur Ogden, who wrote this poem. We that are left grow old with the years, remembering the heartache, the pain, and the tears, hoping and praying that never again man will sink to such sorrow and shame. The price that was paid, we will always remember, every day, every month, not just in November. Merci.
On behalf of the Manitoba Métis Federation, please accept this gift and thank you very much for those beautiful and kind words.
Thank you.
Do you need help?
Thanks.
Thank you. I now like to welcome Heather and Glenn La Liberté to speak on Sergeant Lawrence La Liberté. Heather and Glenn, please help me. Come and join me at the podium. Do yours first.
Hello, folks. We are honored to be here today to give tribute to our dad, Sergeant Lawrence M. La Liberté, CD. A remarkable husband, father, and grandpa who made our life a very happy one. It is also an incredible honor to be here in a room full of people, those in the military, those who devote their lives to keep the public safe, and those who are here to support them, especially to honor the brave men and women who gave of themselves, gave their young lives so we may have the freedoms we have in this great country of Canada. Dad was born and raised in the area of Santa Clara, and the Duck Mountains were his home. In 1939, he was very aware of the war being fought in Europe, and he knew he could do his part. He lied about his age, he was only 17, and was shipped to England for army training, and the rest is in the video and its history. Dad was so proud to be a Queen's Own Cameron Highlander, and he wore the uniform with the utmost pride. He said they were called the ladies from hell because their bravery and their fearlessness. Life is so very precious, and those remarkable men and women who died so very young, who died in conditions we cannot even fathom, it is right that we all gather here today to say a heartfelt thank you to the veterans who live with the memories and the brave soldiers who live their lives and carry on to honor those who died. A heartfelt thank you to all you folks who have given your love and support and gave your mourning to show this. We are very proud to be members of the Manitoba Métis Federation, and we want to give special thanks to those who created Dad's video: Aaron, Sierra, Michael, Jordan, Tyler, and Carrie. And thank you for following through on everything for us. My husband, Glenn.
Hi, everybody. Honored to be here. On behalf of my dad, I'd like to talk about sovereignty. Sovereignty of our nation, sovereignty of our Métis nation is very important. If you lose your sovereignty, you lose your freedom. And what he fought for was our freedoms here. His freedoms to go hunting and spend time in the wildlife and do everything that he loved to do. The freedom to choose, to pick a political party he wanted to vote for, whatever it was, it didn't matter. It was important for him, sovereignty for our nation. And you see that our sovereignty of our nation is under attack at the present time from the far south. Well, and this is not political, but Prime Minister Carney got on a plane, went straight to Europe, saw England, went to France, and then came back home. And before he got back home, there was a nuclear sub on our western border, and there was a nuclear sub on our eastern border. Soon, the rhetoric stopped from the south. That is what sovereignty is all about, keeping us free. We keep our friends free, we keep our nations free, we keep NATO free, we do our best to what we do. And Métis are always sometimes the first to stand up and go fight for our nation. Not that anybody else doesn't do that, but they're always doing it. My dad didn't, he just walked into the thing there. Well, you'll see it on the video. Anyway, I just like to say sovereignty is a package that we all live for and love our nation for, whether it's internal from our police services or our external, which is our armies. We thank you very much for your service, and thanks for being here today. Thank you.
That's okay. So Glenn and Heather, thank you very much for those kind words, and please accept this small token of our appreciation for coming up and doing and saying a few words. Thank you very much, Glenn.
Thank you.
And Heather. Just for clarification, are we doing the wreath first and then the video? Thank you very much. Now I'd like to ask every guest who brought a wreath to please go to the back and pick up the wreaths. And then I will be calling you in order to lay the wreaths. And our staff will guide you in the next portion of our ceremony. So, Minister Park, you'll be first. I think we're about ready to start. Please give me a single. Thank you. Starting on behalf of the Manitoba Métis Federation, I ask Minister Jack Park to come forward. On behalf of the Red River Métis Veterans Department, Minister Sean Nolt. On behalf of the Southeast Region, Vice President and Minister Denise Thomas. Thank you. On behalf of the Winnipeg Region, Minister David Baudin and Minister Joanne Remillard. Thank you. On behalf of the MMF the Paw Region, Ms. Cara Delarond and Will. Representing the Manitoba Métis Federation Southwest Region, Mrs. Carrie Ann Salkowski. From the Royal Canadian Armed Forces 17th Wing, Lieutenant Colonel Joshua Van Tyne and Master Warrant Officer Mavis Plash. On behalf of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Assistant Commissioner Scott McMurchie. As a Member of Parliament for Selkirk Interlake Eastman Region, James Bazan. Thank you. Representing MLA for Lac-du-Bonnet, Charlie Janile. Thank you. Representing the Royal Canadian Legion for Manitoba, Northwest Ontario Provincial Command, First Provincial Vice President, Gail Conrad Davey. Thank you. Town of Lac du Bonnet, Mayor Ken Lodge. Thank you. Rural Municipality of Lac du Bonnet, Reeve Lauren Schinkel. Thank you. Representing Hong Kong Veterans Commemorative Association, Marlene Bell and Marilyn Gillenis. Thank you. Portage La Prairie MMF Local West Hannah and Ken Jennis. Thank you. On behalf of Métis Veterans, Lawrence La Liberté, Glenn and Heather La Liberté. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the laying of the wreaths. As we conclude this year's Indigenous Veterans Day ceremony, I'd like to sincerely thank everyone for taking the time to gather here in the Southeast region to honor our Red River Métis veterans, active services, and their families. Thank you to our special guests for your kind words about our veterans and for laying your wreaths in their honor. So thank you, Elder Marcilla, Minister Nolt, Minister Gauthier, Oliver, Schuyler, Corporal Alexandra Nolt for her great bagpipe playing, our color party veterans Chaquette, Wells, Wickstrom, and President Hampshire, as well as the color party members Lapota and Taylor for helping us celebrate our veterans and our Métis culture. Thank you to the Lac du Bonnet Legion and the Southeast region once again for welcoming us into your beautiful space and for your collaboration in making this Indigenous Veterans Day so special. A tremendous thank you to our Red River Métis Veterans Department and supporting MMF staff for coordinating this event and for the hard work you do all year round to support our veterans and their families. And finally, to all our Indigenous and non-Indigenous veterans, both here and across the country, thank you. Truly, thank you for your tireless dedication, sacrifice, and bravery in keeping our country and our River Métis homeland safe. Your service has given every one of us, our future and our future generations, the freedom to live peaceful lives. Before I continue, I also want to thank our communications department for being here and for all the great work that they are doing. We invite you all to stay and join us for refreshments and entertainment with the airing of a short-form documentary about the Métis veterans Lawrence La Liberté. I'd now like to call upon Elder Vecina back to provide a closing prayer, and then followed by Oliver Boulette and Gary McIver will conclude a ceremony by playing God Save. It should be the King, but just hold on a second. Yep, they got it right, the King, followed by the departure of the Color Party led by Corporal Alexander Nault. Once again, if you can rise for the prayer and so on. Thank you.
Getting better. Practice. I need some practice with that. Thank you for this honor of closing this important gathering. Dear Father, with grateful hearts full of appreciation for our many Indigenous veterans who sacrificed their lives for us and our freedom, God of comfort and mercy, we ask you to wrap your arms of love and compassion around those veterans who are suffering today from their times of service. Heal their broken hearts and spirits today and show that we love and remember them, freeing them from the deep sorrow and losses they may have experienced in their military service to their country. Through your grace, may all our Indigenous veterans find peace, know that they're valued and remembered now and forever. We ask these things in your name. Amen, Miigwech, and Marcy. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Oliver. And I call upon the Color Party. Please be seated.
As per our customs, I would also like to thank Minister Andrew Carrier for doing a great job on emceeing today, and we have a little gift for him as well. If we could all give him a round of applause, please.
Thank you very much. You're welcome. I may have received the gift, but my job's not quite done yet. Thank you very much for that beautiful gift. And I'd like to invite everyone for refreshments, but just so that you know, we're going to spend the next 10 or so minutes for refreshments. Then we'll be asking you to come back and to your seat as we have good things to show. We have a video coming up as well. We'll be introducing our youth dancers who have been very patiently waiting. So give a round of applause for our youths that have been very patient. Thank you. So let's take 10, 15 minutes. The canteen is now open, I see. And we'll see you guys in about 10, 15 minutes. Thank you. Okay, can you put this with my glasses? Absolutely. Sorry. Can you get me a little sack that's on the table? I should have been there right after. The table, because I haven't had my share yet of a sandwich or two. So ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to, if I may continue with everyone, the River Métis Veterans Department, alongside Glenn and Heather La Liberté, as well as the MMF Communication Department, are excited to share with you a short-form documentary about World War II veteran Sergeant Lawrence La Liberté. Sergeant La Liberté served in the European theater of war for Canada. Later in life, during hunting trips, Sergeant La Liberté shared his stories of his life and the war with his son Glenn. This documentary allows a glimpse into the remarkable life of one of our Red River Métis veterans. So please join me and please enjoy. Can we get the lights down a little bit in front? Legion Hall members? Okay, I think we're ready to start the video. Please enjoy.
I gave to you my parting kiss not so long ago. Childhood days come to mind, and tears begin to show. In life I loved you dearly, in death I love you still. The road of life is sure to part. I know it is God's will. Thank you for all you gave to me, and to you I render this. Remembered in my prayers of the heart, I leave you with my final kiss.
My dad grew up in Santa Clara. It was a tough living for them, right? Because my grandpa was a small mixed farmer, so he had like pigs and chickens and horses and stuff like that. And my grandfather did everything with a team of horses, right? He always had a team of horses, and my dad worked the farm. But growing up in Santa Clara, for him, it was tough because they were poor, and they were, like he always said, he says, the Indians didn't want us, the whites didn't want us. We were just Métis kids. Then when he got a little older, like 15 or 14, he worked on other farms and drove other horses around the field and plowed them and stuff like that. But he had good times too. Like they always had barn dances up around there in Santa Clara, and so he went to those. But a lot of it was hard work, always hunting or fishing for food. And even though they had a small farm, it was still hand-to-mouth kind of feeding and eating, right? So he did help my grandfather on the farm for a while, and then before he left the war, and then, but he learned a lot of stuff in the bush.
You've got to be tough to take a new kind of war, and one of the jobs of the battle wing at CDS is to make the Canadian Army that way. The obstacle course plays its part in getting officers and men into prime condition, and it's no small part either. You can take it or leave it, but you can't leave it. You've just got to take it.
My dad decided to join the war because things were tough back then, right? It was after the dirty 30s, and now we're moving up into the world. A bunch of the guys got together, like the young guys got together around the Santa Clara area, and they were talking about it. So they were saying, like, there's a war going on. Do you guys want to go? My dad says, what do you got to know? What do you got to do? He says, you got to be able to shoot a gun, you got to be able to march, and you got to be fairly strong. My dad says, I can pass all that. He says, what do you get for that? He says, you get clothing, you get boots, you get a gun, you get 3 meals a day. He says, so we're going. So they all decided that was a good idea. I can't remember how many there were, but there was probably 3 or 4 of them. And then they hopped a train, didn't buy a ticket on a train, but they hopped a freight train into Winnipeg. And they had all these emblems up there, the Queens, they had Princess Pat's, they had 4 or 5 different units up there. You could pick a badge, and then you'd go sign up with those guys, right? So my dad didn't like the little devils, just because they were devils, right? because he was a good Catholic boy. So he didn't like that, and he didn't want to do that. Then he saw St. Andre Serrant, the cross. He says, I'm going to join that unit. So he did, and that's why he became a Cameron, right? Don't forget, when you were back then, you were basically a man at like 15 years old. There was no 18, 21, 22, whatever, right? These guys were already hard-working men at like 15, 16. So he decided to go as French Canadian because they did not recognize us as Métis. They did not recognize Métis as a word, so he figured he better go as something. So he just said, I'm French Canadian, and that's why he went. And it was easy because he's going over to France anyway, right? So it's just like French Canadian, yeah, okay, we'll do that, right? And he could speak French. So that's why he signed up as a French Canadian. And I believe he knew that if you were wounded or anything during the war and you're Métis, you got nothing for it, right? Whereas anybody else would get a pension and all the rest of that. So that's why he signed up the way he did, just so he would be able to, if something happened, he would be taken care of a little bit. Soon after that, the basic training started, and then he went, I think, to the East Coast, and they took a ship and they went across to England. That's where they landed, in England.
Barges approach shore, ready for instant action. Some bearing artillery and rocket guns already opening fire.
His unit already got slaughtered at Dieppe, like a lot of them. So they decided not to send them in first day at Juno Beach, even though a bunch of them were there, but not all of them, right? So he came on the second day of Juno Beach, and his orders were to clean up all the Germans that were running around the countryside or whatever he could capture. So he eventually they captured what they captured, and they were handed over alive and well. And then they carried on with that, and then he was given orders to go here or go there. So they regrouped, and he did a bunch of stuff after that. He was like all over the place. He was in France, Belgium, Germany, and he would always get a rest. They always give him rest either back in Holland, or they send him back across to England to rest. So, but he was on the front lines pretty much the whole time he was there. He was always in the front, always in the mess of it. He was in Caen after they blew it up for a while. The Allies blew it up for a while to get the Germans and Nazis out of there. Caen was a messy place. It was lots of close combats all the time. There was like, they were chasing out houses and doing stuff like that. So they were walking the streets, all of a sudden they hear the whistling of artillery coming over. So he jumped beside a vehicle on the street, and a guy beside him jumped beside him and landed with his boots by his head. And all of a sudden the guy started screaming after it blew up, right? Looked at the guy's boot, and there was blood all over the place, and the guy was screaming, and then he says, okay, well, he says, thank God that guy was there. If he would have landed there alone, he'd been dead. Yeah, my dad was asked to go behind enemy lines and reattach the, because he had, I don't know what you call it, telecast, or they tap on to send code back and forth from the front lines, very behind, way behind front lines. And if it got blown up during the day or cut, they would send him at night to go find that and reattach it. So he'd have to strip the cables and reattach it and do that, right? But since he was Métis and he grew up always in the dark, especially in the wintertime, it's lots of dark weather, right? So when he had to take the cattle down to Child's Lake, which is near Santa Clara, for watering, there's no lights, it's pitch black as wood. If it was like a cloudy day, it's like pitch black. He was so good at that. Could run, and he went through the bush and hopped over stuff every day to get to where the lines were. He came back and they sent him over, like, he did it quite a bit. And then finally, one of the upper guys said, you know what, he's done it enough because it's a dangerous job, right? So there was another guy from up north that says, I can do that. So my dad went to him and says, listen, this is what you gotta know. He says, I know what I'm doing. My dad says, really? He says, yeah, I don't need no help. He didn't make it back that night. He died in the field. Anyway, they were walking down the little gully. And all its friends were killed. It was just him and the radio man left, and he was shot through the hand. So he told the radio man, give me that Sten gun. The radio man says, I'm not giving you that. What am I going to do? He's going to use his rifle. He says, well, use the rifle. He says, I can't use my other hand. I need that Sten gun. And he says, give me the Sten gun. And then the radio man put a little bit of a puff about it. And then my dad says, listen, you want to live or you want to die here? Because if you want to live, you got to give me that Sten gun. I got to do something. So the radio man reluctantly gave him the Sten gun. So he ran 50 yards down that gully backwards and then ran up the side of it where the Germans were. And he took that Sten gun and sprayed the whole area. He did it once and he did it twice. And then he ran back down the hill. And then he ran 50 yards up to where the radio man was. He just called for some backup for us, right? Because we had needed. And then he ran another 50 yards up down that gully and then ran straight up that hill and started mowing it down again to make them believe that we had a lot more Camerons left than what were there, right? So then he finally got back to the radio man and he said all of a sudden daybreak was starting to happen, right? And so he had wrapped his hand best he could, and then the Camerons started coming through to back them up. So as they were coming through, my dad talked to the captain, and the captain says, okay, you need to wrap that up and you need to get out of here and you need to go back to the road, right? My dad says, well, I can show you where they are, I know exactly where they are. He says, I'll show you. And the captain says, this is an order. You get that hand fixed before it goes into gangrene, or else you're not gonna have a hand here. So you need to leave right away and get that repaired. So he went to the road, and so he got to the road and he was full of adrenaline, obviously. And one of the Camerons came up and gave him a can of peaches. And so he opened it for him and gave my dad a spoon. My dad said it was the best tasting peaches he ever had in his whole life. And then they took him into, I guess you want to call it a kind of, everybody would understand what, like, it was a field hospital, basically. They got him to the field hospital, and it was in France there. So they got him there, and then we got $1 million wound here. He says, you get to go home. He says, you never lost a limb. He says, your hand's gonna be not perfect, but you can go home. He says, not going home. And they sent him back to the unit. After he was wounded, he got back. They continued their way through France because they were slowly pushing out small towns and that kind of stuff. And his whole unit was with him. And so then they were walking down a road in France, and they got under attack. And his best friend got shot on the road and was dying there. My dad held him in his arms while he died. And they continued on through France, and they cleared out that spot where he died. And he's in that cemetery in France, and then they continue on. Got up to a forest at the edge of France, and they had to go through, and then one of the higher-ups came through and said that the Germans know we're here. So he says, you guys got to dig into this forest. All like those big, like you see along the Red River, the big cotton trees and everything like that. He says, there were all trees all over there, all big, big trees. He says, when we didn't go to sleep, he says, when we looked in the morning when the daybreak broke, he said, there wasn't a tree standing left. And he said, in that big forest, he says, he couldn't believe they mowed down every tree there was. They kept blowing them up. In between all those stories, my dad would get lifts to go to England to rest and that kind of stuff. So he would go to England, and this is where he met my mom. So there was a dance going on in Canterbury. So the Canadians are all, they love to dance, right? And Dad, being Métis, really loved to dance. So he said, well, let's go to the dance, right? So my mom, on the other hand, is the Canadians were in, and it seemed like all the people knew the Canadians were in. They really liked the Canadian soldiers, and so my dad and his buddy decided they were going to go be Gone with the Wind in Canterbury. So they got to the dance hall, and my dad obviously saw my mom and decided, this seems like going, he says, do you mind if I walk you home? And my mom says, you know the sidewalks are free, right? So I, okay, my dad's going, okay, here we go. So he says, yeah, they are. It's okay, I'll just make sure you make it home safe, right? And so as they were walking, my mom says, you know, the French and English had been at war for 700 years. So my dad looked at her and says, you want to kiss and make up? So I don't know if anybody's got a better line than that, but as that continued on, he met with my mom, and my mom was playing pretty hard to get at that time. So every time he had to leave off, every whatever it was, a couple months or a month, he'd be back again, and then he'd look her up. And then one time she'd come home, didn't realize that he remembered where she lived. Being a good Métis, you know your way through things, right? So we got to her house and then sat with her mom and her dad in the living room drinking tea. So my mom walks in the living room and goes, what the hell are you doing here? He says, I'm having tea with your mom and dad. And she goes, and then she was mad at him because he had tea with my mom and dad. So then they became girlfriend and boyfriend, I guess you could say, and eventually grew to be the best friends you ever had. So they met, and then they got married. Kind of the war was finished, and they weren't still off duty yet, but he was still part of the Camerons. So the whole village in Fort Ridge all gathered together. They all had ration stamps. They all got together and gave all the ration stamps to my grandmother and grandfather so they could buy stuff for the wedding. And they had a big party there, and my dad's best man missed the wedding. He took the wrong train. My dad said he was probably drinking in England or somewhere and missed the train to get to Fort Ridge, so he used one of my grandfather's friends as his best man, but it didn't matter back then. He was getting married to the love of his life, so it worked out very well for them. These stories didn't come out till later in his life. Like, they were important to him then, and he knew I was old enough to understand the stories. So he would tell me all these war stories, and so that's why I remember them for what they were. So his whole legacy is everything, right? Everything that Heather and I do and that I do, that's the legacy of my dad. He was an amazing man, and anybody who knew him loved him because he was such a nice, kind guy, right? He was very kind. That's all I can say, and it's stemmed through to my marriage as well. They were married for 63 years, and Mom said no matter if they had a heated discussion or anything, she says every time they went to bed, they always kissed each other goodnight, no matter what happened during the day. So that was a wonderful affirmation of what they did, because they loved each other so much. So they didn't want the sun to go down being angry about anything or sad about anything. So we do the same thing. You know, when one of us is not strong, the other one is. When one of us is back and forth.
Well, we hope you enjoyed the touching documentary, and we'd like to thank the La Liberté family